The key turned in the lock with a finality that echoed like a slammed door in Kala's chest. She froze on the sidewalk. Her tote bag slung over one shoulder, stuffed with dog-eared manuscripts she had meant to slip back onto the shelves before leaving. Iris stood there too, arms crossed, staring at the unyielding brass as if it had betrayed her personally. In that split second, the rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the sodium lamps, and the world narrowed to the space between them, charged with the weight of what neither had said all evening. Kala swallowed hard, her breath catching in the cool night air. She had lingered too long in the back room, sorting through the poetry section while Iris tallied the day's receipts at the counter. The bookstore, pages unbound, had been their sanctuary for months now. A haven of creaking wooden floors and the faint scent of aged paper amid the perpetual drizzle of the Pacific Northwest. But tonight, as the clock ticked past 10, Iris had glanced up with those green eyes that always seemed to see too much. "You heading out?" she had asked. Her voice casual, but her gaze lingering on Kala's lips just a beat too long. Now, locked out, the reality crashed in. Iris rattled the door again, her frustration bubbling up in a low sigh that escaped her lips like steam from a forgotten kettle. Of all the nights, she muttered, running a hand through her auburn hair, the strands falling messily across her forehead. Kala shifted her weight, the pavement cold beneath her worn sneakers, and felt a flush creep up her neck. She had noticed Iris before. Of course. How could she not? The woman was 35 to her 22. A force of quiet command in fitted blouses and jeans that hugged her curves just right. Her laugh a rare, throaty sound that made the regulars come back week after week. Iris owned the place, poured her soul into every curated shelf, every late-night event where authors read under strings of fairy lights. And Kala? She was just the part-timer, the barista who steamed lattes in the corner cafe nook, dreaming of her own words finding a home on those pages someday. The rain started then, a fine mist that turned the air heavy, beating on their coats like tiny accusations. Iris pulled her hood up, but not before a droplet traced the line of her jaw, and Kala had to look away, her heart thudding unevenly. "My apartment's only a few blocks," Iris said finally, her tone practical, as if this were just another inventory glitch. "We can wait out the storm there. Call a locksmith in the morning." Kala nodded. Words stuck somewhere in her throat, and they fell into step along the empty avenue. The city's hum a distant lullaby. Streetlights cast long shadows, pooling gold on the wet asphalt, and the occasional car splashed by, headlights cutting through the gloom like fleeting hopes. As they walked, the silence stretched, broken only by the patter of rain on umbrellas they did not have. Kala stole glances at Iris, memorizing the way her shoulders squared against the wind, the subtle sway in her stride that spoke of confidence earned through years of holding things together alone. Iris had bought the bookstore 5 years ago, after a divorce that the staff whispered about in hushed tones. A marriage to a man who never understood her love for stories over small talk. Kala knew the details in fragments, pieced from overheard conversations and the way Iris sometimes lingered over books about women who chose themselves. It made her ache. That quiet resilience. And tonight, with the lock barring them from safety, it felt like the universe was nudging them closer, testing the fragile boundaries they had both respected so carefully. They reached Iris' apartment building, a narrow brick walk up in Capitol Hill, its facade ivy-cloaked and glowing faintly from the lobby light. The stairs creaked under their feet, each step amplifying the rhythm of Kala's pulse. Iris fumbled with her keys at the door, the jangle unnervingly loud in the hallway, and when it swung open, warmth spilled out, scented with chamomile tea and the faint earthiness of houseplants. The space was small but lived in, bookshelves lining every wall, stacks teetering on the coffee table like precarious towers of thought. A worn leather couch faced a window overlooking the street, rain-streaked panes blurring the world outside into impressionist strokes. "Make yourself at home," Iris said, shrugging off her coat and hanging it by the door. Her blouse clung slightly from the damp, outlining the graceful line of her collarbone, and Kala busied herself with her bag. pretending to search for her phone. But her eyes betrayed her. Tracing the room, a photo on the mantel of Iris younger. Arms around a sister in sun-dappled woods, a half-finished crossword on the kitchen counter, the soft glow of a lamp that cast her host in amber light, softening the edges of her weariness. Iris moved to the kitchenette, filling a kettle with water. Her movements efficient yet graceful. Like someone who had learned to fill silences with small rituals. Calla sank onto the couch, the leather cool against her thighs, and let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. The rain drummed steadily now, a percussion that matched the storm building inside her. She thought of the poems in her bag. Verses about longing scribbled in stolen moments behind the espresso machine. Words she had never dared share. Iris returned with 2 mugs, steam curling lazily from the rims, and handed one over, their fingers brushing in that electric instant that sent a shiver up Calla's arm. Chamomile, Iris explained, settling into the armchair across from her. Helps with the nerves. Their eyes met then, and the air thickened, heavy with the unsaid. Calla sipped, the tea scalding her tongue, a welcome distraction from the heat pooling in her chest. Thanks, she whispered, her voice barely above the rain. Iris leaned back, cradling her mug, and for a moment, they just sat, the city's pulse fading to a murmur. But beneath the calm, Calla's mind raced. What was this? A kindness from her boss? Or something more treacherous? She had felt the pull before. In stolen glances over the counter. In the way Iris remembered her favorite authors and slipped recommendations into her breaks. Forbidden. Yes. Because Iris was her superior. The woman who signed her checks and held the power to unravel her fragile dreams. Yet here, in this borrowed intimacy, the lines blurred like ink in water. Iris broke the silence first. Her voice soft, laced with a vulnerability that caught Calla off guard. You know, I almost sold the store last year. She stared into her tea, as if the leaves held answers. After everything. It felt like too much weight. Calla leaned forward, drawn in despite herself, the mug warm in her palms. What changed? She asked. Her words tentative. A bridge extended across the chasm. Iris looked up, her green eyes shimmering in the lamplight, and smiled faintly. A curve of lips that did not quite reach the sadness there. A customer. Young. Like you. Left a note in a book I recommended. Said it made her feel seen for the first time. She paused, her breath hitching slightly. Reminded me why I started. Calla's throat tightened, empathy flooding her like the rain outside. She set her mug down, fingers trembling just enough to notice. I get that, she said, her voice gaining strength. Writing. It's my way of feeling seen too. But sharing it? Terrifying. The admission hung between them, raw and unpolished. And Iris nodded, understanding flickering in her gaze like a match struck in the dark. They talked then, words flowing easier than the tea, about dreams deferred and the ache of creation. Iris spoke of her ex, the man who dismissed her passions as hobbies. And Calla shared snippets of her own fractured family back in Portland. Parents who loved her but never quite grasped the world she built in her head. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The rain easing to a drizzle. The clock ticking toward midnight. Calla felt the shift. A subtle gravity pulling her closer. Her body angling toward Iris without conscious thought. When their knees brushed accidentally as she reached for her bag. The contact lingered, neither pulling away. Iris' breath caught. A soft sound that echoed in Calla's ears. And in that pause, the air crackled with possibility. Calla, Iris murmured. Her voice husky. Eyes darkening with something unspoken. But she stood abruptly, breaking the spell, and cleared the mugs with unsteady hands. You should get some rest. The couch pulls out. Calla nodded. Heat lingering on her skin where they had touched. Her mind a whirlwind of what-ifs. As Iris disappeared into her bedroom, leaving the door ajar just enough for light to spill through, Calla unfolded the couch. the sheets smelling faintly of lavender and Iris herself. She lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, the rain a lullaby that did nothing to quiet her racing heart. The night had locked them together, and dawn felt like a distant promise, one she both craved and feared. Morning light filtered through the curtains in hazy shafts, painting the living room in shades of gold and gray. Calla woke to the aroma of fresh coffee, her body stiff from the makeshift bed, but her mind alive with the echoes of last night's confessions. She sat up slowly, rubbing sleep from her eyes. And there was Iris in the kitchen, sleeves rolled to her elbows, pouring grounds into a French press with the focus of an alchemist. The sight of her, hair tousled from sleep, a loose tank top revealing the freckles dusting her shoulders, sent a pang through Calla's chest, sharp and sweet. "Good morning," Iris said, glancing over with a smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. No trace of awkwardness, just warmth. As if the vulnerability of the night before had settled into something comfortable, like an old sweater. Calla unfolded herself from the couch, smoothing her rumpled shirt, and padded barefoot to the counter. "Morning. Smells amazing." They moved around each other in the small space. A tentative dance, shoulders brushing, excuses for proximity in the steam rising from the pot. Iris handed her a mug, black and steaming, and their fingers met again, this time deliberate. A spark that neither acknowledged but both felt. They ate breakfast standing up. Toast slathered with jam from a jar Iris had bought at a farmer's market in Pike Place. The conversation meandered, light at first. Tales of quirky customers and the time a cat had wandered into the store and claimed a window seat as its throne. But beneath the laughter, currents ran deeper. Calla watched Iris gesture animatedly, her hands expressive, nails short and practical, and felt a surge of affection, unbidden and fierce. How had she not seen it before? This woman who built empires from words, who carried the weight of solitude with such grace. The locksmith arrived at 9. A burly man with a toolbox that clanged like wind chimes in a gale. Iris paid him cash, her voice steady as she explained the mishap. But Calla caught the flicker of relief in her eyes when the door finally yielded with a click. Back inside, pages unbound. The familiarity was a balm, shelves greeting them like old friends. They worked side by side that day, restocking with a rhythm born of shared space. But the air hummed differently now, laced with the intimacy of the night spent too close. Calla caught Iris watching her once, as she balanced a stack of novels on a ladder, and the look held hunger, quickly masked behind a cough and a turned head. By afternoon, the store filled with the usual crowd, browsers flipping pages under the hum of indie folk from the speakers. Calla manned the cafe, frothing milk with mechanical precision. But her thoughts wandered to Iris in the office. Door half open, typing emails with furrowed brow. A customer, an elderly woman with a scarf like autumn leaves, ordered a chai and leaned in. "You two make a good team," she said, nodding toward the counter where Iris had just restocked the sugar. Calla blushed, stammering a thanks, the words twisting in her gut like vines. As closing neared, the sky cleared, a rare blue dome over the sound, and Iris suggested a walk to shake off the day. They locked up together, the key turning smoothly this time, and headed toward Discovery Park, the paths winding through evergreens that whispered in the breeze. The air was crisp, salted from the nearby water, and they fell into step, shoulders occasionally bumping, excuses fading. Iris spoke of her childhood in rural Oregon, summers spent in libraries that smelled of dust and possibility. Her mother's encouragement a lifeline against a father's practicality. "She was the one who bought me my first book of poems," Iris said, her voice softening with memory. "Emily Dickinson. Made me feel less alone in my head." Calla shared her own fragments. The move to Seattle at 18. Chasing a creative writing program that drained her savings but filled her notebooks. "It's scary, putting yourself out there," she admitted, kicking a pebble along the trail. "Like, what if no one cares?" Iris stopped then, turning to face her. the sunlight dappling her face through the branches. They will, she said simply, her hand reaching out to tuck a stray curl behind Kala's ear. The touch lingered, thumb grazing her cheek, and time suspended, the forest holding its breath. Kala's pulse roared in her ears, her skin alive under that gentle pressure. And she leaned in. Just a fraction. Testing. Iris pulled back first. But not far. Her breath uneven. We should keep moving, she murmured, though her eyes said otherwise. They continued. The path opening to a bluff overlooking the bay. Waves crashing far below in rhythmic fury. They sat on a driftwood log. Legs dangling. The vastness of the water mirroring the expanse in Kala's heart. She felt exposed. Raw. The desire coiling tighter with every shared silence. Iris sighed. A sound heavy with longing. And rested her head on her knees. This feels dangerous, she whispered. Not looking up. Kala's heart stuttered. What part? Iris lifted her gaze. Green depths pulling Kala under. You. Us. The way you make me want to forget the rules. The admission cracked something open. And Kala reached for her hand. Lacing their fingers together. The warmth seeping through like sunlight. They sat like that as the sun dipped lower. Painting the horizon in fire. The world shrinking to the press of palm against palm. When they rose to leave. The touch broke reluctantly. But the promise lingered. A thread pulling them back to the city lights. That evening. After parting with a hug that lasted 3 heartbeats too long. Kala returned to her tiny studio in Fremont. The walls papered with rejection letters turned art. She paced. Notebook in hand. Words spilling out in frantic script, lines about locked doors and unlocked hearts. About the terror of wanting what you should not. Sleep came fitful. Dreams tangled with iris scent. Her voice. The almost kiss on the bluff. Dawn brought a text. Simple and seismic, dinner tomorrow? My place. Bring your poems. Kala stared at the screen. Fingers hovering. Then typed yes. Her resolve hardening like setting clay. The forbidden edge sharpened everything. Made the ordinary electric. She spent the day in a haze. Shelving books with half her mind. The other half scripting scenarios. Each more vivid than the last. Iris moved through the store like a magnet. Drawing glances. Her smiles for Kala laced with secrets. By closing. The tension was a live wire. Humming between them as they wiped down counters. Elbows grazing. Breath sinking without effort. The walk to Iris' apartment that night felt charged. The streets alive with possibility. Neon signs flickering like Morse code. Iris had cooked. Pasta with basil from her windowsill. Wine poured into mismatched glasses. They ate on the couch. Legs tucked under. The meal a prelude to the real feast, words. Kala pulled out her notebook. Pages trembling in her grip. And read aloud. Voice quivering at first. Then steadying on the rhythm of confession. Iris listened. Chin in hand. Eyes never leaving her face. And when Kala finished. The silence was reverent. Broken only by a slow clap that turned into applause. You're brilliant, Iris said. Voice thick with awe. And crossed the space between them. Cupping Kala's face in both hands. Their foreheads touched. Breaths mingling. And Kala felt the dam break. Her hands finding Iris' waist. Pulling her closer. The kiss came soft at first. Exploratory. Lips brushing like pages turning. Then deepening. Hungry. Tongues tasting of wine and want. Iris sighed into it. A sound that unraveled Kala completely. Her body arching to meet the press of curves against curves. They broke apart gasping. Foreheads still touching. The world remade in that instant. But doubt flickered in Iris' eyes. A shadow crossing her joy. This. We can't, she whispered. Even as her fingers traced Kala's jaw. Kala's heart fell. The high crashing. Why not? Iris pulled back slightly. Conflict etching lines around her mouth. I'm your boss. The power. It's not fair to you. The words landed like stones in still water, rippling out. Calla searched her face, seeing the fear beneath the desire. The scars of past imbalances. Then let's make it fair, she said. Voice fierce. Quit seeing me as the kid behind the counter. See me. Iris searched her eyes. The battle internal. Then nodded once. Resolute. Okay. And pulled her back in. The kiss renewed. Slower now. Savoring the surrender. They moved to the bedroom. Clothes shedding like old skins. Bodies exploring with reverent hands. Sighs punctuating the night like stars. In the tangle of sheets, Calla found home in Iris whispers. The forbidden blooming into something sacred. Tender. Dawn crept in. Finding them entwined. Breath synced in sleep. The line crossed but the path ahead uncertain. Weeks blurred into a secret rhythm. Stolen moments threading through the fabric of their days like gold veins in stone. At the bookstore, they maintained the facade. Professional smiles over the counter. But their eyes held codes. Glances lingering like caresses. Calla arrived early for shifts. Finding excuses to brush past Iris in the stacks. Fingers trailing spines that mirrored the shiver down her back. Iris reciprocated with notes slipped into her apron pocket. Scribbled quotes from Sappho or Woolf. Words that made Calla's cheeks burn amid the espresso grind. One Saturday, with the store quiet under a rare sun, Iris locked the front door early, flipping the sign to closed. Field trip, she announced, grabbing her keys with a grin that lit her face like dawn. They drove south in Iris' old Jeep. Windows down. Wind whipping their hair as the city gave way to winding roads flanked by firs. The destination was the Olympic Peninsula. A cabin Iris rented on a whim years ago. A writer's retreat she had never used alone. Now, with Calla beside her, humming to the radio, it felt fated. The dashboard cluttered with maps and half-eaten apples. The cabin nestled in a clearing by Lake Crescent. Its logs weathered silver. Porch swing creaking in the breeze off the water. They unpacked in companionable silence. Bags thumping on the floorboards. Then wandered the shore. Skipping stones that plipped into the glassy blue. Calla's laughter rang out when hers sank immediately. And Iris pulled her close. Kissing the top of her head. The gesture domestic. Grounding. You're perfect at imperfection, she murmured. And Calla melted into her. The lake mirroring their ease. Inside, they cooked together. Chopping vegetables with knives that flashed in the slanting light. Wine flowing as freely as stories. Calla opened up about her fears. The novel manuscript gathering dust in her drawer. Rejections that stung like paper cuts. Iris listened. Then shared her own failures. The manuscript she shelved after her divorce. Convinced her voice too broken for print. We heal by writing through it, she said. Clinking glasses. Her foot hooked around Calla's under the table. That night? By the fireplace. Flames dancing shadows on the walls. They made love slowly. Bodies mapping each other anew. Sighs weaving with the crackle of logs. Iris traced constellations on Calla's skin. Whispering endearments that felt like vows. And Calla arched into them. Lost in the tide of her touch. But the idol cracked on the drive back. A radio news snippet about a local scandal. A workplace romance gone sour. Headlines screaming power imbalances. Iris' grip tightened on the wheel. Knuckles paling. And silence fell heavy as fog. Calla reached for her hand. But Iris kept it on the gearshift. Eyes fixed on the road. We need to talk, she said finally. Voice strained. Pulling over at a scenic overlook where the sound stretched endless below. They stood by the railing. Wind tugging at their clothes. The vastness amplifying the smallness of their fears. It's not just us, Iris began. Staring at the horizon. If word gets out. The store? Your dreams. My reputation. Calla heart twisted. The joy of the weekend souring. So what? We hide forever. Her voice rose. Edged with hurt. And Iris turned. Pain etching her features. I don't want to hurt you. You're young. With so much ahead. The words echoed her own doubts from that first night. And Calla stepped back, arms wrapping around herself. Don't patronize me. This isn't about age. It's about you being scared. The argument simmered, words volleying like stones, until tears streaked Calla's cheeks. Hot and unbidden. Iris reached for her. But she flinched, the space between them widening like a chasm. I need time, Iris said softly. Defeat in her slump. They drove home in fractured quiet, the Jeep feeling like a confessional turned courtroom. At Calla's studio, the goodbye was a peck on the cheek, cold as coin, and she watched Iris' taillights fade, chest hollow. Days followed in a gray drift. At work, politeness armored them, tasks completed with mechanical grace. But the spark dimmed, replaced by aching voids. Calla poured her turmoil into writing, pages filling with rage and longing. But sharing felt impossible now. Iris buried herself in orders, avoiding the cafe nook where Calla steamed milk, their paths crossing only in necessity. Whispers from staff hinted at tension, eyes curious over steaming cups. And Calla wondered if the secret had seeped through cracks. A breaking point came midweek, during a reading event. The store buzzed with patrons, air thick with perfume and anticipation. The author a rising star and queer lit. Iris introduced her with poised charm. But her eyes sought Calla in the crowd, a plea hidden in the green. Calla stood at the back, arms crossed, heart warring between anger and ache. As the reading unfolded, words of love defying odds washing over the room, something shifted. The author spoke of vulnerability as strength, of choosing heart over caution, and Calla felt tears prick, mirroring the quiet sniffles around her. After, as the crowd thinned, Calla lingered, stacking chairs with deliberate slowness. Iris approached, hesitant, her blouse untucked, vulnerability raw. Can we talk? Really talk? Calla nodded, throat tight. And they slipped into the back room, the door clicking shut like a held breath. The space was cramped, shelves of unsorted donations looming, but it felt vast with unspoken words. Iris leaned against a box, rubbing her temples. I'm terrified, she admitted, voice cracking. Of losing you. Of ruining this. Calla stepped closer, the scent of Iris' perfume grounding her. Then don't. Fight for it with me. She cupped Iris' face, thumbs wiping stray tears. And the dam broke. Arms wrapping fierce, bodies colliding in a kiss born of desperation. It was messy, teeth clashing, hands clutching, but real, stripping away the fears. They broke apart panting, foreheads pressed, laughter bubbling through sobs. Okay, Iris whispered. Together. The reconciliation fueled them. Nights reclaiming intimacy with renewed fervor. Mornings tangled in sheets. Coffee shared with sleepy kisses. But shadows lingered. The world outside pressing in. A coworker cornered Calla one shift. Eyes knowing. You too. It's obvious. The words chilled. And Calla deflected with a laugh. But inside, panic stirred. Iris felt it too. Her texts laced with caution. Plans shifting to neutral ground, parks. Cafes far from the store. They escaped to Portland one weekend. Calla's hometown. A road trip down I-5 with playlists of indie anthems and pit stops for pie. The city unfolded in nostalgic layers. Bridges arching over the Willamette. Food carts steaming with falafel and tacos. They wandered the Pearl District, hand in hand under the guise of friendship. But fingers intertwined when eyes turned away. At Powell's City of Books, the world's largest independent, they lost hours in aisles, pulling titles for each other. Laughter echoing off towering shelves. This one's you, Calla said, handing Iris a slim volume of Audre Lorde. And the dedication in Iris' eyes made the air thicken. That night, in a boutique hotel overlooking the river, they made plans, dreams spilling like wine. Calla submitting her manuscript. Iris expanding the store with workshops. But in the quiet hours, doubts whispered. What if it's not enough? Calla murmured. Head on Iris' chest. Heartbeat a steady drum. Iris stroked her hair. Voice firm. It is. We are. Sleep claimed them. Bodies spoons. The city lights a constellation outside. Back in Seattle. Reality intruded sharper. An email from the store's landlord. Rent hikes looming. Forced Iris into overtime. Her mood fraying at edges. Calla supported quietly. Bringing takeout to the office. Massages that turned to lovemaking on the desk. Papers scattering like confetti. Yet the strain showed. Arguments flaring over small things, a forgotten call. A late night alone. You're pulling away, Calla accused one evening. Voice sharp in the kitchen steam. Iris sighed. Weary. I'm trying to hold us up. The words hung. A mirror to deeper fears. And they clung through it. Apologies sealed in tears and touches. Climax brewed in a storm. Literal and figurative. Thunder rumbling over the sound as they argued in Iris' apartment. Old wounds reopened. Power dynamics resurfacing in heated words. You still see me as the employee, Calla cried. Pacing the rug. Iris stood. Voice breaking. I see you as everything. That's why it scares me. The thunder cracked. Lights flickering. And in the dark that followed, they found each other. Fumbling for candles. Hands meeting in the gloom. I'm sorry, Iris whispered. Pulling her close. Let's build something real. The power returned with the storm's ebb. And so did they. Stronger. Vowing transparency. Months wove forward. Seasons shifting like chapters turned. Autumn painted Seattle in russet and gold. Leaves crunching underfoot as Calla and Iris navigated their rhythm. Boundaries redrawn in quiet negotiations. They went public in subtle waves, a shared table at staff potlucks. Hands brushing openly. The store's hum accepting with nods and smiles. Whispers faded to well wishes. The community wrapping them in quiet support. Patrons leaving notes of encouragement in suggestion boxes. Calla's manuscript found a home with a small press in San Francisco. The acceptance letter arriving on a Tuesday. Ink fresh as her tears. Iris read it first. Over breakfast. Her whoop echoing off the walls. Pulling Calla into a spin that ended in laughter and kisses. I knew, she said. Eyes shining. You're unstoppable. They celebrated with a trip to the San Juan Islands. Ferry slicing through Salish sea fog. The cabin there a mirror to their first escape. But now with champagne chilling and a typewriter clacking Calla's revisions. Winter brought challenges. The store's sales dipping with holiday rains. But they innovated, virtual readings. Themed nights on queer voices. Iris mentored Calla through edits. Red pen gentle. Their evenings a blend of critique and caress. Feedback turning to flotation on the couch. One night. Snow dusting the city rare and magical. They walked to Gasworks Park. The old factory skeletons silhouetted against the lit-up Space Needle. Under a blanket of white. Iris dropped to one knee. Not with a ring but a book. Hollowed out. Holding a key to her apartment. Move in, she said. Voice steady despite the tremble. Build this life with me. Calla yes was a sob. Pulling her up into an embrace that melted the chill. Their kiss tasting of promise and pine. Spring unfurled in blooms. Calla's book launch at Pages Unbound a triumph. Shelves rearranged for signings. Friends crowding the cafe. Iris watched from the wings. Pride swelling her chest. Her hand finding Calla's under the table during toasts. Squeezing with unspoken I love yous. The reading drew tears. Words of their hidden year resonating. Veiled in fiction but true in marrow. Afterward. In the quiet store. Confetti from poppers littering the floor. They slow danced to a phantom waltz. Bodies swaying to heartbeats alone. Yet depth came in shadows too. Iris therapy sessions unearthed divorce ghosts. Sessions Calla attended when invited. Holding space in the waiting room with novels. One evening. Post-session. Iris confessed to fear. What if I can't give you the family you dream of? Gadya. Tracing her palm lines. Replied soft. Family is us. However we shape it. They volunteered at a youth center. Reading to LGBTQ kids. Stories of heroes like them. And in their wide eyes, healing flowed both ways. Summer peaked in a road trip east. Crossing Cascades to Montana plains. Iris jeep laden with tents and tales. They camped by Glacier National Park. Stars a dome overhead. Fireside confessions deepening bonds. Kala spoke of imposter syndrome gnawing her success. Iris of burnout flickering at edges. We rest together, Iris vowed. Zipping their sleeping bags into one. Mornings brought hikes. Hands clasped on rocky trails. Vistas stretching infinite. Mirroring their growth. Back home. The bookstore thrived. Expansions funded by Collis Advance. A poetry corner named after them both. Staff evolved. A new hire mentored under their wing. The cycle continuing. Intimacy matured. Less frantic fire. More steady glow, lazy Sundays in bed. Reading aloud. Bodies languid with contentment. Arguments arose. Tempers flaring over space or stress. But resolutions came quicker. Apologies laced with humor. Making up a ritual of forgiveness. One crisp fall eve. A year from the lockout. They returned to the bluff in Discovery Park. Sunset bleeding pink across the bay. Iris spread a picnic. Wine and cheese. The same log their witness. Remember, she asked. Leaning into Kala. How we almost lost this. Kala nodded. Head on her shoulder. It taught us to hold tighter. They talked of futures, adoptions maybe. Travels to Italy for wine and words. The store is legacy. No rush. Just possibility. Unfolding like a well-loved book. As stars pricked the sky. Iris turned. Eyes deep pools. You saved me that night, she said. Voice hushed. From the lock? From myself. Kala smiled. Tears welling gentle. We saved each other. Their kiss was slow. Seasoned with time. Bodies fitting like puzzle pieces worn smooth. Walking back. Arms linked. The path lit by moon and memory. Kala felt the humanistic hum, love not conquest. But quiet revolution. Two women weaving wholeness from fragments. In the years that followed. Pages unbound became a beacon. Shelves groaning with voices once silenced. Events drawing crowds hungry for truth. Kala books multiplied. Tours taking her south to New Orleans jazz nights. Iris joining when able. Their hotel rooms alive with reunion heat. They adopted a rescue dog. A mutt named Echo. Who curled at their feet during writing sessions. Tail-thumping approval. Challenges came. As life demands, Iris health scare. A minor surgery that tested their vows. Kala at bedside with poems recited soft. Recovery brought deeper gratitude. Walks slower. Hands firmer. Kala's second novel grappled with their story. Fiction veiled. Dedicated to Iris, for the woman who unlocked me. On anniversaries. They revisited the bookstore after hours. Key turning symbolic now. Doors opening to dances in empty aisles. Laughter echoing. The forbidden desire of that first night evolved to sacred flame. Burning steady. Warming the spaces between. And in quiet moments. Kala would watch Iris shelve a book. Profile golden in lamplight. And feel the depth, not perfection. But persistence. Two souls choosing daily the messy beauty of us. The world spun on. Rains falling. Suns rising. But their story. Humanistic in its tender flaws. Lingered like afterglow. A reminder that love. Once locked out. Finds its way home.